right, we have Casey Cochran back in. Thank you for coming back in again.
Always a pleasure.
Founder of the largest food prep company in Florida, right?
Not the largest, but the best, the highest rated.
The highest rated.
We went for quality instead of quantity on that one.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah.
And that's mealprepsbiz101.com, right?
That mealprepbiz101.com is basically me teaching other people how to start or grow their own meal prep company. So I'm taking all of the knowledge and experience over, since 2013 is when we started, and just sharing it. The way I look at it is there's always someone else who eats. There's not really a possibility of competition like cutting you out. So why not share and everybody kind of learn together and, figure out this new, because it's still a pretty new industry. It's not like restaurants have been around forever. The meal prep concept is growing, but it's still got a lot to grow, a lot to learn.
So you're kind of like a mentor for somebody who wants to open up a meal prep company?
Yeah, I've always connected with other entrepreneurs. I'm sure you can relate. There's just something that the experience of creating a business and running it, you kind of see behind a veil that I want to say normal people, not to offend anybody, but people who have not done that. And then even more so when you're in a specific industry, like realtors probably have their own lingo and their own experience and stuff they can relate on and scars that are similar and stuff like that. So I always like connecting with other meal prep owners and other entrepreneurs, but especially, again, in the meal prep industry. And this was kind of something I was already doing. Then I wanted to learn YouTube, so I started playing around with YouTube videos. And the only thing I was thinking like I could talk extensively about was meal prep. So that's how it started and got more interest, and now I'm consulting people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that toward the end so everybody knows where to go.
Mm-hmm.
It will be in the description.
Awesome.
Also going to be a firefighter. And also today's big topic is what you study, I study. You study more than me. You're the one in school. Neurolink, Ufo Sightings, different dimensions, all kinds of stuff that we can get to.
Yeah.
But the first thing is this Roger Reeves,
yes,
smuggled for Escobar. He escaped from prison several times, did 33 years in prison.
Yeah, really interesting character.
So what do you know about that?
So I know that during the cocaine cowboys rush, for anybody who's not from South Florida or not familiar with it, I'm sure people even outside of Florida are familiar with it because it's been all pretty glorified with the narcos and everything. But cocaine cowboys era was when there's a lot of cocaine coming in from South America, and I know Mr. Reeves was based out of Florida for some extent, and he even mentioned living in Coral Gables, but he's been arrested I don't know how many times in different countries, and he's escaped from all these prisons, but he was running for Escobar, and I guess it was before Escobar really kind of flipped and started getting malicious and vindictive and really started going to war with the other cartels. So his experience was really interesting because I think it's very lazy for us to, in movies, kind of program us to think of someone as good or bad. And the way he described meeting Escobar and his interactions with him, it made him fit more of that Robin Hood kind of character. Gentleman, businessman, wasn't screwing anybody over, plenty of money for everybody. He was even saying the cartels were kind of getting along, which is another perspective that I didn't really imagine, but they were behaving like businessmen who just were in the business of an illegal product, but they weren't killing people right away. Then obviously with money and power comes corruption and infighting and jealousy and stuff like that. So that's when I think things exacerbated. But he said when he was dealing with them, his impression of Escobar and the other guy Escobar was partners with, I forget who, but he's like, yeah, they were gentlemen. My family went down. We vacationed with them and stuff. They hosted us with their horses and their stables and motorcycles and all this stuff. And it's just interesting to see that kind of that gray, darker area of history. And this guy who's like a living relic, he was there through it. So the stuff that we see on Narcos and Blow and Made in America. Actually, so Made in America with Tom Cruise. That guy, Tom Cruise's character, worked under Reeves.
Really? That
yes.
We're talking about right now.
Yeah, so he hooked him up, basically. They met at some point, and he mentions that, it's interesting, and I know you did conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff. There's supposedly that movie Made in America was kind of suppressed or pushed back because there was content, or they were worried that there was content about the Clintons and their involvement with bringing narcotics into the country. And Tom Cruise's character at one point, and Reeves talks about this in one of the interviews he did, he basically said, let's land in, where was Clinton? Arkansas?
Yeah, Arkansas, yeah.
He's like, let's land in Arkansas. It'll cost us this much money, but like it's impossible for me to get arrested there. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, just don't worry. I know the right person, and that right person was supposedly Clinton's.
No shocker there.
Interesting
Is there anything that they're not involved in? I mean, people
stuff.
falling off planes, disappearing.
Oh, man.
I mean, you name it, they've done it.
Yeah, I've seen, and again, I know it's all crazy conspiracy stuff, but there's a list, and I'm sure you're aware of it, of all the people around the Clintons associated with them who have died in really weird ways, like 2 shotgun shots to the head in a suicide.
Yeah, like execution style thing.
Yeah.
And also it was all people that they were connected to that crossed them or crossed somebody in their group some way, somehow. Now, we don't, allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly, that's what they did. But there's definitely up to dirty shit one way or another.
Yeah.
A guy was just in here. He was he played Syracuse Final Four, and he was telling me that Lamar Odom, you know, when he was with the Kardashians, this is just a little bit off topic. When one thing was with the Kardashians, and it's kind of like the same thing with the Clinton. So Khloe Kardashian is at James Harden, the basketball player. He's at that game. She's at that game in Houston. While he's all fucked up in the hospital, she flies to go visit him in the hospital, gets him to sign the rights over. So to this day, my boy who played in the Final Four and still friends with him to this day, they talk all the time. Kris Kardashian, the mom, has full control of all his money. So he goes, we pulled it up, if you know, whoever didn't watch it, it's Terry. And Lamar goes to bet, right? His thing is like $5,000. That's all he has. They give him $5,000 a month. Okay. So he goes to bed. So he borrows 10 from some guys he shouldn't, and they kidnap him. She wouldn't give him the money, so she ended up paying $5 to get him released. And then before that, I had Homer in, another guy who's up. He was training MLB players, athletic trainer, NFL players, so on and so forth. They're in Venezuela. The Clintons, he's got a hooker, right? He's single, whatever. Well, the whole team goes to this hotel, and the hooker that Homer's with says, you won't believe who's in here. And she was like all scared to tell him. And Homer's a guy that wouldn't lie. And Hillary got 2 hookers. Bill got 2 hookers. And this is from a hooker that Homer was with at the time. And Homer is a straight businessman. Right? He's not into that, making up shit.
Yeah.
If he was there, he was there. If he wasn't, he wasn't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just the beginning of that.
Yeah, I actually saw that episode, and that's jived with, again, the conspiracy theory kind of chatter that I've seen. I'm fascinated by that stuff. I don't believe it to the extent that I make decisions based on it, but then when I hear another story that kind of correlates or corroborates, it's like, just going to add that to the little list and file it away.
That's how I am. I'm like, maybe, but then when it comes from a guy that I know personally, that has a big IT staffing business, into a lot of shit, well off, he doesn't have time to make up lies.
Or anything to gain.
Yeah. And what's he going to gain by saying, hey, I'm in Venezuela with the MLB and NFL, and this is what happened with the Clinton? There's no reason to, right?
Yeah.
There's no benefit. But to this guy here, okay, so here's the article. You want to read that?
Yeah, Roger Reeves revealed the close calls, suitcases of cash and prison cell torture involved in working with Pablo Escobar, but admitted he would take it back to swap his years in jail. Yeah, he did a total of 33 years, and of course, it's the wisdom that only those who have experienced it will really believe, and it just kind of falls on deaf ears. But he says, despite having money and being able to buy whatever I wanted, what I lost wasn't worth it. And that's one of those things that you always expect. But 33 years, man.
33 years. One of the most prolific drug smugglers of all time has opened up on his extraordinary life from working with Pablo Escobar to the horrific torture he was subject to in Mexican prison. Did you know that?
He did mention being tortured in one of the prisons that he was in, and he was in definitely in the presence of some serious dudes. Yeah. And this was just a guy who, flew a plane, and then you get wrapped up in this kind of stuff. And it's like, going in through the shallow end, you just get deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you realize.
Right there it says he flew 100 flights from Colombia, Mexico, over the U.S. border to Miami to smuggle cocaine, earning him tens of millions of dollars. But the drug mule's actions came out at a devastating cost, spending 33 years behind bars in 26 prisons. Damn. Holy hell.
Yeah, he was talking about being arrested. He was in prison
That's
in Spain.
Him right there, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know where he's living now. I know he was in Coral Gables at some point. He mentioned that. He'd be an awesome interview for you, I'm sure. Kind of goes along with a lot of the interesting stories.
Now, is he out now?
He is out. Yeah, he just did he did a interview with Lex Friedman. That's where I saw him. I think that was within the last month or so.
Yeah, Lex is blowing up pretty big.
Yeah.
Smart guy.
Yeah. Very interesting. He's like, I really like Rogan's style, and I also like Lex's style, where they're completely different. Lex is very like analytical. The guy's got a PhD, and he's like this wunderkind where he's always learning stuff. So he's got all of his questions, he's got evidence and all this stuff, where then Rogan is kind of just, Rogan's less of an interview, more of a conversation. It's like they forget there's an audience, whereas Lex is like to the point. He's like, that brings me to my next question. But he has very good questions. And both Rogan organically gets to these really good questions, which is really, it's like an art form, how good he is with his conversations. But I still respect the way Lex does that thorough research, and he has it all down. But yeah, the stuff that he was getting into, particularly with that episode, like it was interesting. He was talking about like the kind of lucky ways he got out of prison. Like one of them was because he noticed like while he was coming into the prison, there were some sections of the wall that were being repaired because they were putting in a bigger wall. So he knew, okay, if I could get to this point, I know I could get out. Now I just got to figure out how to get to that point. And clever stuff where instead of climbing down into the yard, he went up onto the roof, and they would assume he went down into the yard, but in reality, he really, really cool and just chance instances. I think he got out of prison 5 times.
Yeah, I mean, once is hard as hell.
Yeah.
And I would assume this was a federal case. I mean, I don't know, but...
Yeah, he was... Some of it, I know they were preparing to extradite him back to the States, and so it was like international notoriety that he was showing up on.
The best article that we found that we pulled up, that was from the UK.
Yeah.
And that was more of... The other ones that I saw were like, it wasn't all there, but that kind of pretty much said in 3 paragraphs what the deal was, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you could imagine the stories that he has, the good times and the bad times and the close calls and everything else, but it's definitely interesting.
33 years, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And the torture, do you know why did he get tortured? I guess in Mexican prison, it says.
Yeah, I don't. They probably trying to get him to. I didn't listen to that part specifically, but I'm imagining it was probably to get more names
out of
who he went. Like at some point, so Tom Cruise's character is working with the CIA in the movie, and again, that guy's working under him. And at some point, he said he met him at this bar, and he's like, "Are you wearing a wire?" And the guy's like, "No, but everybody in here is CIA."
Wow.
And he's like, okay, well, he's like, listen, man, I got a good deal for me. You're included. You just got to flip. And he's like, I can't flip. Like, all these guys are my friends. So he didn't flip, and that's how he ended up on that side of it. Otherwise, he could have taken that opportunity and I guess worked with the CIA. But then again, you're flipping on the cartel. You're not really going to have...
Yeah, you're dead either way.
Yeah, you start a clock either
You're
way.
either going to do 33 years, and hopefully you live for the 33 years and get out somehow.
And have a family to get out to.
And have a family to get out to, or you cooperate. We're not talking about Italian or Irish or whatever. They'll go after your family, your dog. We all know that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if he's locked up and he cooperates and they can't find him, they'll just go to the next best.
Yeah.
And what would hurt you more? Taking out your girl or your wife, or taking out yourself?
Yeah.
Most real men would say, I'd rather me go than my wife or my kid, right?
Yeah, especially when you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
You know, I rolled the dice and, came out this way, so it was fun to have the planes. Now I go to prison.
Yeah, I mean, you walked into that life, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So now we'll switch lanes to Neuralink with Elon Musk, which we talk about a lot through text and a little bit last time you were in. It was still kind of new.
Yes.
I think it's awesome. I mean, I guess I guess it's done pretty much. It's just waiting in the final stages, and he's going to start with the medical. And correct me if I'm wrong. It's a chip that they put in the brain, in the skull, and the first series will be like a fishing hook. And that fishing wire goes to the part of your brain that has autism or Alzheimer's or whatever it may be. That will be the first one out. And that wire will go right to that part of the brain that is causing that disease or whatever you want to call it. And through that chip in the brain, they'll be able to correct it.
Yeah, the things that they're actually going to, my understanding of it is all of the things that they have slated kind of for the initial use cases for it are all going to be kind of repairing damage or fixing a problem. So it'll be stuff like that. I know that they can resolve seizures. They're even talking about, restoring people who have paralysis, being able to restore in certain cases, depending on what type of damage or what the disorder is. So initially it is going to be we're fixing someone who's already broken kind of stuff. But eventually that is going to evolve to then become an optional thing. You have to imagine before it's brought to the layman, all of us normal people, they're deeper in the studies and they've proven more as far as the applications and utilitarian purposes for it than we're aware of. Yeah, it's just like cloning. Like I've heard cloning was really, kind of mastered by the 80s, but we didn't see Dolly the sheep until like the 90s. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we're totally not cloning people or anything. Definitely not splicing genes and making superhumans. Of
course they are, especially China. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So they're going to start with the medical. I don't think he'll have a tough time with that.
No.
And then, like you said, like even if you're paralyzed, I saw an article on that and then over time, which I don't know how long do you think until the chip where you're as fast as a computer?
There's this really interesting book, and I may have I don't know if I recommended it to you through text or maybe even the last time I was on the show, but it's called The Future is Faster Than You Think. And there's a lot of really mind-bending stuff that it kind of opens your eyes up to. But the overall takeaway is the fact that these technologies that we have coming out, all these like advents in technology and progress and breakthroughs that these independent technologies are making, these revolutions that are happening, they're also going to compound the effects of other technologies that are coming out. So you're combining like super new stuff like quantum computing, which is, around the corner. Arguably it's already here. Machine learning and AI, and then like 3D printing and all this automation. And like as these things all start working together, it accelerates. So the stuff that we would normally think is going to be several decades away, it's very close. So I say that to basically answer, I think realistically within the 20s, like I think within this decade, we will see a lot of things remedied by that. Because once you have these technologies in place, these very difficult or impossible problems all of a sudden become very easy to do. Like if you think about it, like the paralysis from my waist down is just an inability for that information to go back and forth. And then once you have a biomechanical method of doing that, you're just sending information back and forth. We're doing that with internet all the way around the globe. Like you don't think I could do it from my legs to my brainstem,
Right, because your leg is controlling your brain. So when they shoot that link in to make it like just, simply spoken, like a fishing wire, when you go fish, they put that in there, they're able to get to the part that affects you may being paralyzed from the waist down.
Yep.
And they can control that chip.
Yeah.
And manipulate the brain to correct the issue that you can't do by surgery without probably killing the individual.
Yeah.
And or they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
You just bypass what's broken. Instead of trying to repair the nerves, you just circumvent them.
You bypass that and you just go right to the part of the brain and you start to fix it. So that will be huge. But my concern with that is how is Big Pharma going to take that? Because now you don't, You know, now you're running into billions and billions of dollars of companies that spend on patents and everything else. And if you come out with a drug, or a way, I should say, to, you're paralyzed from the legs down. You have Alzheimer's. You have autism. Okay? Now that person doesn't need 17,000 different medications that these big pharmas paid gazillions for patents.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think that is going to play a role in this being released?
I think that's why we see Musk being the one who's resolving this. You're taking a tech company, not a pharmaceutical or medical company. They're coming from the outside because everybody in pharmaceuticals, they need funding for their tests and yada, yada, yada. If you look at the stuff that Musk is involved in, a lot of it now is more like just a giant laboratory. Everything's an experiment. They're inventing everything that they're doing. Like I even heard that the GPUs or the TPUs that they're using they basically made them from scratch. Instead of going with what already exists, they're going, and it's like, I'm going to use a hammer to build a house. It's like, no, let's reinvent the hammer first, and then that'll allow us to build the house more efficiently. But they go so much further back than they need to. But part of that creation process is, like the overspill of what they learn through doing that project goes into their other products. Like with SpaceX, I think the cold rolling steel or something, some kind of technology that they figured out how to do with SpaceX to make the shell of the different rockets. They're now using that in the Cybertruck as the exoskeleton. So I think that's why this is going to get done. And if it was normally up to pharma, it would be decades out. Because like you said, I mean, there's more money in, and I learned this by working in pharmaceuticals when I was in my 20s. I realized that the money is in treating people, not curing people. So maybe, I mean, to throw in like a little, like kind of dystopian kind of tint to this, maybe there's going to be like, okay, you get your legs back, but you have to pay a subscription in order to have the connection. And as soon as your like little Legify subscription expires, like you don't walk for that month or something. Like that movie, The Repo Man, where it's like you have the kidneys and you finance your kidney or whatever your new lung or whatever it is, but you don't make the payments, and they send a guy to go rip it out of you and repossess it. Like, you see these movies and these books, and these thoughts come from somewhere.
Yeah. I don't see that happening with the Musk company, though.
Hopefully, no, not with Musk, but like
he's going to have competitors
that's how
at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how the pharmaceutical companies will do it. And it seems like a lot of the stuff that Musk does is like, he seems like he's more interested in creating and innovating than really, I mean, I don't know how tight he is with patenting his stuff. He seems like he's more, and I might be wrong, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like he's more like, here's what we're doing, here's our notes, like, can you improve upon it? We're all trying to save the planet together, like, not really hiding his patents and stuff. I'm sure there's some tech that he is patenting, but I think when it comes down to like, whereas like Bill Gates, he's going to protect his little patent. He doesn't want anybody else doing it because that's how he makes his money. He's not sharing the recipe. I feel like Musk is more like, this is what we're doing. Here, go ahead and do it. See if you can improve upon it.
Oh, no, he patent his shit.
Yeah?
Patent, yeah.
Okay.
But my concern is them pharmaceutical companies, man. I mean, think how much money they're going to lose if this guy comes out with, you can fix Alzheimer's? How much do you think they get from somebody that has Alzheimer's and they live for 10 years? I know somebody that has it. He doesn't even know what fucking day it is. And he's got like that pill case. I mean, the fucking thing's filled with probably 20 pills a day.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be an issue. I mean.
Yeah, it's all of these major companies that are, it's interesting because we're going to see, I mean, where does the line draw? Like, how do we know that there won't be a private company that basically becomes its own government with its own rules, but it's not restrained by a constitution, it's not restrained by physical boundaries, but it's got more money than governments, and now it can hire private security? And what if they're in weapons? Like, what keeps them from basically being this massive global power? And it starts with Jeff Bezos and selling used books on Amazon. Then eventually he's like got his own private army basically. And he's like, oh yeah, we got into, we bought Lockheed Martin too because we have that much money. It's like,
do you think Elon and Bezos are pissed off that what's his name got up there before him? I mean, they're doing it different ways than Elon and what's the actor? He was an actor, right?
Richard Branson.
Branson, yeah.
Yeah.
He just went up there. Now he went up like barely above the thing. I think.
Yeah,
It was like a minute or.
they're all doing different stuff. It seems like Musk seems like the most ambitious. He wants to go to Mars. Bezos wants the moon, and then Branson was kind of going for like almost more like vacations and travel kind of stuff, where he's like, I don't know if that's the stratosphere or what that's called, that outer level.
Yeah, he got right up to the point, I believe, where he's out of the ozone layer.
Yeah.
Or he's like technically in space.
So
like
it's like right
barely
there.
right there.
There's no gravity, but you're still in orbit and stuff.
Yeah, you're still in orbit, but you're not in space like Elon and Bezos want to go to. So, on the other hand, with the Neuralink thing that we're talking about, the pharmaceutical companies, not everybody's going to want to get a chip put in their brain, especially for a while until they see it works. So, maybe it won't be that hard to get past because of that reason only, because not everybody's going to be down with getting a chip put into their head. They're going to be like, fuck it, I'd rather just not get fixed. I mean, give it to me, fuck it.
Yeah, it's weird because, I mean, it's scary. The people who get it first, especially when it has an ability to access information faster, do calculations faster, like those people it's going to be like that movie Limitless.
Yeah.
But more so, because now it's not just what's in your brain. You can now have access to the internet.
Yeah.
Those people have such a crazy advantage that, I think a lot of the reason he's so interested in Neuralink is because he sees it as the only real way we're going to be able to stand a chance against AI eventually. Yeah. So it's going to be a necessary evil, but the first people who have it, hopefully they have the best interest in mind.
Yeah. See, I think that I don't know if we'll see that in our lifetime. Maybe toward the end. I do think the medical part of it, but, well, you know what? I think it depends on who's in office. Yeah. I think that's what it depends on. If it's somebody in office who wants control, then they're not going to allow that chip. They're going to block that till the end because that changes the game.
Yeah.
If it's somebody that, is more lenient and more for the better, you know what I mean? Because you have to go. AI is inevitable. That's the next evolution. Mm-hmm. We both agreed on that prior when you were on. So you have no choice.
Yeah.
That's the only way. Otherwise, you're going to have robots with conscience that feel and love. That's why your phone is recording you at all times. Even when it's off, it's recording. Every website you go to. This is not just because of ads. They're building fucking a robot to have conscience, to see how you feel on certain days. Blah, blah, blah. Facebook, Google. Apple seems to be the only one who's fighting them a little bit as far as we know.
Yeah.
Now when you go to like Safari, it says do not track. You go to your email, it says, do not show my IP. So they've made an attempt to separate themselves from the Googles and the other ones that are tracking the fuck out of you to build their AI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now,
which I do respect a lot. And I wasn't...
You were an Apple hater when I first met you.
Yeah, I for the second time I'm on iPhone. I am struggling with it. I got the X when it first came out, and I lasted 3 weeks. I am on the whatever the new Max Pro, the $1,500 one, and I'm still not in love with it. But I do respect the fact that they are mindful of privacy to an extent, or at least they're making it seem like they are. But they also all have like every alphabet agency working within their company already, so they can't they can't record our screen, our keystrokes. They can't record any of the audio.
I think when you go to Safari, if you do the do not track, I don't think so. And then when you go into mail and it says, we'll hide your IP when you're mailing people, I think that's legit. I do. But if you go to Chrome on the iPhone,
yeah,
that has nothing to do with Safari or Apple. That's Chrome.
I've even noticed that they have a warning like when you go to open up a link or something that takes you to a YouTube video. They're like, it's not going to be anonymous, or it's going to be tracked. Are you sure you want to move forward and go to YouTube?
And apps as well.
Yeah.
Right. So here's, this isn't the homepage, but this is the article on the Neuralink. You're a pretty good reader.
Rock climb without fear, play a symphony in your head, see radar with superhuman vision, discover the nature of consciousness, cure blindness, paralysis, deafness, and mental illness. These are great. That's a great selling point right there.
Yeah.
Those are just a few of the applications that Elon Musk and his employees at the 4-year-old neuroscience company Neuralink believe electronic brain-computer interfaces will one day bring about. 4-year-old company. It's amazing how fast this stuff is able to get
It really
out.
is.
None of these advances are close at hand, and some are unlikely to ever come out. But in a product update streamed over YouTube on Friday, Musk, also the founder of SpaceX and Tesla Motors, in case anybody's not familiar with Musk, joined staffers wearing black masks to discuss the company's work towards an affordable, reliable brain implant that Musk believes billions of consumers will clamor for in the future. It's pretty interesting. A Fitbit. It's kind of like a Fitbit in your skull with many tiny wires. I love Elon Musk so much.
Man. Although the online event was described as a product demonstration, there is, as of yet, nothing that anyone can buy or use from Neuralink. This is for the best, since most of the company's medical claims remain highly speculative. Well, obviously. It is, however, engineering a super dense electrode technology that is being tested on animals. Neuralink isn't the first to believe that the brain implants could extend or restore human capabilities. Researchers began placing, this is what you kind of said earlier, this was happening a lot earlier. Researchers began placing probes in brains of paralyzed people in the late 90s. Never heard about that. In order to show that signals could let them move robot arms or computer sensors, and mice with visual implants really can perceive infrared rays. Building on that work, Neuralink says it hopes to further develop such brain-computer interfaces to the point where one can be installed in a doctor's office in under an hour. This actually does work, Musk said, of people who have controlled computers with brain signals. It's not just something the average person can use effectively. Throughout the event, Musk definitely
avoided giving timelines or committing to schedules on questions such as when Neuralink's system might be tested in human subjects. If he's dodging it like that,
yeah, so
they might be further along than they want to say.
Think. Yeah, so if we just breeze through this, because we know a lot. So they're using pigs right now, it looks like, right? Live stream. The brain of one pig contained an implant, and hidden speakers briefly chimed out ringtones that Musk said were recordings of the animal's neurons firing in real time. For those awaiting Matrix in the Matrix, as Musk had hinted over Twitter, the cute animal interlude was not exactly what they hoped for. To neuroscientists, it was nothing new. In their labs, buzz and cradle of electrical impulses recorded from animal brains and some human ones has been heard for decades. So that's an article. Now, this is the actual website. And I don't know if you can understand this, but he's got a whole thing here of, do you understand what this is here?
I'm guessing these are like neural pathways in the brain, and
right.
That's basically what your information is going to be, the electrical impulses that...
Right. So like this could be Alzheimer's, this could be autism, this could be paralyzed, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it hits. And then it connects through like that. And then he's a beast.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see one character who's going to be so revolutionary in our lives.
Yeah, so when do you think we'll get the first real human where this is available? If you
publicly, I think within the next 5 years, they're going to publicly admit that they've either been doing it or they're going to make it seem like, oh, this is the first guy. Look, now Bob can walk, or now Bob can use his hand. But I would imagine that it's already going on right now. I feel like Musk... I don't feel like Musk is like a Hitler's dude who was doing all the experimentations with people. Dr. Mengele, where he's like doing these crazy, cruel things. I don't think Musk would be intentionally risking human lives, but I also feel like he has a time preference where he knows that the faster this gets done, even if it has to be done in the gray. And this is complete speculation, but I'm imagining that they're further along with probably, I mean, if you had a case that was so bad or something that was terminal and you're willing to sign off on it, you know, and they had a lot of studies where it hasn't maybe gone through all of the AHA or FDA or whatever, you know, red tape in this country, but they're like, we know that this is like 99% going to work. I'm sure there's something going on.
Right. And I would assume that they would, kind of like stem cells when they first started, you know, like the Mayo clinics and the private clinics, they could do 20 a month.
Yeah.
So I think it will start off, okay, he can do 10 volunteer patients a month. And then once that goes well, then they'll give him 50. And then it will become, you know, more public, right? Yeah. That's probably how it's going to go.
Yeah. And that even seemed like it came about pretty quickly. I remember when stem cells, like you heard you had to like fly to Switzerland or something like that to get them down. And now it's like all over Boca, stem cell.
Yeah.
So
the good shit's still in Germany though.
Yeah, I believe it.
But there is some, and they're doing kind of what I said. Like the U.S. is allowing so many right now. Germany, you can get pretty much fixed.
Yeah.
You know, within reason. But eventually we'll have all those stem cells that are in Germany will be legit. Again, it comes down to who's controlling the country.
Yeah.
Because if it's somebody that's all about controlling everybody,
and their lobbyists through their funding is not.
You're not going to see any of this shit until somebody gets in that, you know, is more open to technology and understanding the threat of AI.
Yeah.
But if it goes the other round where it's all about control, we won't see this for a while because they will block the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
Because now they don't have so much control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what's your estimate before you see the first human? What's your bet right now, today? How long do you think?
By 2025.
It's about 4 or 5
by
years.
By 2025, they'll have someone walking who couldn't walk previous to this. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah. I don't doubt that at all. Now, we were also talking about all these UFO sightings. Do you think they're real? Or do you think it's just, you know, another country putting out something, or we're shooting something that we don't want anyone to know, that maybe we were able to reverse engineer something that came here from not here?
I think there's a combination of things. I think that I definitely think there are aliens. I definitely think that we've got some of their tech either given to us or we've been able to reverse engineer stuff that has crashed. And I also don't believe that we're the only country. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of the UFO sightings in the States are a combination of all of those, where it's like Russia like popping in and saying, hey, by the way, we've got it too, and then popping out. I believe it might also be some of our guys in some of them, and then some of them I do think are probably also the original owners, the extraterrestrials. I was also thinking the other day, it'd be funny because a lot of the propulsion systems that they talk about that would be necessary, like some of them are theoretical, and then there's like the argument that like Bob Lazar, was it particle or element 115 or whatever it is, that they use for the fuel, and these theoretical things are starting to be proven. A lot of the propulsion systems, they seem like they would be either capable or very close to the technology required for the capability of manipulating time. So what I'm always thinking about is, you know, you think about what Top Gun, where he's, because at the end of the day, like, everybody's human and everyone's got a sense of humor. It's only a certain amount of time before that technology is in the hands of somebody who's like, you know, Tower requesting a flyby. It's like native Ghost Rider, patterns full. And just someone hey, let's pop in the 1920s and just blow some farmers' minds. It's like, dude, we're going to get in trouble. It's like, let's just do it really quick, you know, and then pop back to 2050 or wherever. But I think so. I don't know if we discussed this when I was here last time, but the one thing that I've noticed, if you look at a lot of the UFOs, or not all of them, but some of them, they'll have like this very symmetrical shape to them, where it either looks like, they'll describe it as like a cigar cylinder, or it's like this round disc. And when you go from a higher dimension into a lower dimension, the thing that's actually going into that dimension doesn't look the same. So if I were to take this can and take it from the third dimension and put it into the second dimension, since there's only, length and width, this can could only exist as a circle. It has to be a two-dimensional object. So this entire can, three-dimensional object, could only exist as a circle or like come in like as an oval, but it would just be a two-dimensional slice right through it. So if we're going from the fourth dimension into the third dimension, I think it would also be like a hole from the fourth dimension would look like an orb, because it would be a higher dimension than what would exist here. So we'd only be able to see a little bit of it at a time. So I think some of them are, with their ability to move the way they do, and they've shown they do these right turns at like 1,000 miles an hour, which would eviscerate any living thing that's in them. That much gravitational force would just like flatten your the proteins in your body and everything. You'd be a pancake. So for it to do that is because it's not actually having to move that fast. We're just perceiving it through our time clock that doesn't stop, but it's able to stop or slow down time from its perspective and make these moves very easily. And I think that it's like this other machine that might not even be a ship. It might be a stationary machine, but as it comes into this dimension, these three dimensions, it looks like an orb or a disc or a pill case or something, or the pill-shaped kind of thing. That the symmetrical ones, that's what I kind of think. Then you see the ones with lights and everything, and that might be something that is, it looks like a spaceship. They look kind of the same to us because it's this weird thing, but I think maybe those might be more of a movement based, where it'd be like something like supercavitation, where you're able to kind of split the atmosphere or the space, or I don't want to use such a restrictive term, but you're able to split whatever's around you, travel within it, be seen and perceived within it, but not be kind of affected by it. So like the supercavitation, they've got supercavitating bullets, and they've got torpedoes and stuff that they can shoot underwater. And normally when you shoot a bullet underwater, it would have so much friction because of the water that like I could shoot you from here and the bullet would like barely hit you. But outside, it's a 9mm, it'd go right through you. By doing the supercavitation, which basically kind of creates an air bubble around these bullets or around these torpedoes, they don't have that friction, and it goes faster and is able to stay straight. So it's not affected by the friction. It has a bubble around it. And I think that maybe those crafts, if they're able to move like that, if they aren't somehow manipulating time, I think they're kind of splitting between the fabric of our three-dimensional world and not restricted by the friction or the gravitational pull or any of that other stuff. It's kind of like you watching a movie and being able to fast forward and pause and move your mouse around the screen and stuff like that. You're not affected by the limitations of what's going on. You're able to move when you pause it. And if someone was watching that and they're conscious and they're paused and they see you move from there to there, it's going to look super fast. So I don't know. I think more and more of this stuff is going to come out. They're never going to show us everything. Like whatever comes out, that's such a small amount. Because if they were to really pull it back and show us everything, I think people would freak out.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because it would defy a lot of religion and everything. I mean, that would just kill everything.
Mm-hmm. And all the trust. It's like, well, you told us that this didn't exist. You've been hiding this from us for so long. Like, what else is out there? So It's like they feed us a little bit at a time. And it's like, if you've noticed, like all this stuff is coming out, and there was another release like last summer or something, and it's like, it doesn't even, like, nobody cares. You'd think this would be what they're talking about around the water cooler.
Well, I mean, Trump was pretty into it. He was the one who made them release it, which was kind of odd.
The 180-day countdown or whatever it was.
Yeah. So, I mean, he was really into it. So after I watched Bob Lazar, I believe the guy. Yeah. I don't think he has any reason to lie about anything at all.
Yeah.
And the Element 151, if you haven't seen it, it's Bob Lazar on Netflix. If you're interested in this, you definitely want to see that. And at the time, it was like, what, the 70s? He said there was Element 151, but it wasn't on the element sheet.
Yeah.
And then he said there was a place called S4. They said it didn't exist. 20 years later, they now say S4 does exist and did exist. And Element 151 was added to the chart like 5-6 years ago. This is a guy who said this in 76 or whenever it was, and nobody believed him.
Yeah.
So therefore, for me, as far-fetched as some of the shit he says is, and, you know, he's off the chain cuckoo,
Yeah.
but also, you know, totally
He's a genius.
genius,
Like, yeah.
right? And most geniuses are, like, a little off.
Yeah.
I mean, Elon's off, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But smartest guy on the planet, in my opinion. So when he explained it and I watched that, and then the proof came out that what he was saying was true. There was an S4. There was element 151. You know, there was no propulsion, which means there's nothing pushing out of the back. That's how it defied gravity.
Mm-hmm.
While Beto was in here, Astrophysics, he was in here, and he deals with Elon to an extent, or through Elon, and he has developed a non-propulsion system to get to Mars in 7 days. The problem, they were doing the last prototype when he was in here. He had to leave to actually go do the last testing for it because it was working. It's real complicated. I mean, I was blown away. He proved that the Big Bang never happened.
Yeah.
I mean, proof. Not like I'm saying it, we pull some shit up. I'm saying proof. He brought proof with him, and we pulled it up, and there's no denying it never happened. It didn't, I mean, when you have facts, you have facts.
Yeah.
And these aren't like made up facts or like conspiracy facts. I mean, it's facts from a guy who's building one of many things. He's doing shit with water, all kinds.
Yeah, that guy. That episode was.
Did you see that guy?
He's like Ukrainian or
yeah.
That. The stuff that he's working on, any one of he's like a Musk we haven't heard of. Any one of those projects would change the world. Like the one where it's generating water through or generating energy through the water, and he's like going out to the islands and giving them free energy, basically.
And what's crazy is all of them are done. It's just a matter of getting it like approved and getting it finalized and whatever. And Elon's down with them. You know, I don't know if he was going to meet Elon or a meeting with Elon's guys because, you know, one way or another, they're working together on it because he's got it done.
That's amazing.
And then we got into the conversation about, time travel, which we'll get into shortly. And he was like, well, look, we can go at the light of speed. He's like, we can go 99, right now, we can go 99.9% at the light of speed if we wanted to, and we're allowed to. We can do it. Him and whoever else, I'm sure a ton of engineers have developed where they can get to 99.9% the speed of light, which that 0.1 really isn't that big a difference. I thought it would be. He says it's not. I believe him. The problem is getting to other galaxies, even the Milky Way, which you can't see because there's so much dust. You can only see a little bit. The problem isn't getting there. We have the speed to get there. The problem is the particles. So as you're going at light speed, if you spit a Hawker at our current build of a spaceship, you will blow a spit going at light speed. If that spit, just spit. We're not talking a fucking rock or an asteroid, just a spit, a paintball. It will destroy the whole machine.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem that they have is, how do you get through the matter? So once you get to Mars, they're going to get to Mars. They can do it. They just got to get approval, however long they push that off for, whatever. But that's a done deal. They're going to get there. They're going to start building, no doubt about it, within 10 years. I'm positive of that after talking to him. But they want to go explore other life. They can go light speed. But as you get out of our galaxy and you start going to others, there's asteroids crashing all the time. That's all that dust that, if you ever look through a microscope or you see pictures, that dusty shit that they clear up with Photoshop, it's a lot of dust. And that's asteroids colliding, nonstop. So the question then becomes that other life is obviously figured out. How the fuck do you get through those particles? And when I asked him, I don't know. And that's where they're stumped at as far as that is. But he blew my mind. I mean, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I think that, it's like they talk about wormholes and those connections where we're transcending the limitations of space in order to solve those type of problems. And that would require us, I'm assuming, I don't know a great deal about this stuff, but I'm assuming that would be some ability to temporarily manipulate or dip into the fourth dimension so that we don't have these limitations and we can skip to it, or figuring out the wormhole thing. I have no idea how those work. I know how they work in theory. I don't know how you'd create one and then direct where the other end is and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like this is something that we're rediscovering. I think that, life has been created and destroyed over and over on this planet and others. And it's just, eventually we're going to get to that answer to that problem. And then that's what it's just, I don't know. I feel like my new perception of reality is like we're all writers and we're all contributing to what this show is. And we're kind of writing for our characters and sometimes for other characters and stuff like that. And I think that all the fiction that we have is just kind of like an echo of memories that we're going to rewrite and recreate and remanifest. And we're eventually just going to get there. And we're going to see all the Star Trek stuff. And I'm even thinking it's going to be in this lifetime because the way stuff is going so fast, like I was saying before, these compounding technologies, like all it takes is like some savant to come out of nowhere and solve that problem for him. Whereas he's done that for other, issues where it's like, oh, we can't figure this out. And then you just get a Musk or you get a guy like, what was his name? Not Bezos. What was it?
Lazar?
No, the
Beto.
Beto.
B-A-D-O, yeah. So, and my opinion is, I think it depends on who's in government. That's the number one. And then number two is if, let's say China copies off Elon, which I'm sure they can do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And they're the first to do it. Now the United States has competition, right? Because China's doing it. Because they'll probably be the ones, they're probably already there now.
Yeah.
They're just, So then I could see it happening in this lifetime. If another country does it, then I think we'll pick up on. Like Germany was, like you just said, Germany was, I believe, the first ones that really pushed the stem cells. Amsterdam, right?
Yeah.
Places like that.
Yeah.
And then we picked up on it later because these other countries are doing it. So now we have to compete. But this is way bigger.
Yeah.
We're talking about stem cells versus traveling.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. With the UFO thing, in my opinion, the tic-tac-toe thing, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think that was a UFO. I think if they're going to come here, why would you want to be seen? Why would you want... Because you don't know if we're going to blast them. In my opinion, they've already lost ships. It's kind of dangerous because, you could blow the fucking thing up. It'd never make it back. So whatever time and research they put into it to get it here, we shoot it the fuck down. Why would you come here and allow it to be seen? If you can get from another galaxy, however many gazillion light years away, why would you come here? I would assume that you have the technology where you can make it so you can't see us. Now, if it crashes and lands, well, then it crashed and landed and the fucking and it sounds insane, but yet possible. But the invisibleness to a human being, we only use 20% of our brain, 25 maybe with an Elon or somebody like that. So the other 75% that we don't use because you would see germs all over your arms right now and you freak the fuck out and everything else. I mean, you would, right?
Yeah.
Anything higher. So in your opinion, why would they want to be seen?
That's one of the things that kind of brings me to that thought of like, what if it's, permission to buzz the tower kind of stuff where they're just screwing around like, hey, let's freak some people out. Hey, especially if they're like, imagine we're tasked with running one of these ships and we're doing these official missions and stuff and we're, it's 2055 or whatever. And we have the ability to jump back really quick to like 1920. And it's like, hey, let's go. We got 5 minutes. Let's jump back to 1920 and freak out some farmers. And then we'll look it up in the database and be like, that was us. Like that might be some of it. Then I'm also thinking like maybe they don't have it as figured out as we would assume they would. Like, let's say we have a basic plane and there's some people on an island who are still wearing loincloths and hunting stuff with spears. We would have the ability to fly over, no problem, but like we could still make a mistake, a miscalculation, something breaks, we end up crashing. And it wasn't like we didn't intend to crash. We weren't trying to be seen or whatever else. It was just, just a mistake,
So in other words, you're kind of saying maybe the ones that possibly could have been seen, it was a glitch in travel.
Yeah, and I think
where maybe the fucking ozone ripped it the fuck off, whatever was shielding them. I mean, it sounds insane, but extremely possible.
And I don't think like the ones that have crashed are because we shot them down. I've seen the videos where, and anything could be fake these days, but I think it was supposedly an official video where you see these rounds being fired off and they just can't keep up with this thing. And this thing's like toying with them where it's going at this speed and they start trying to like catch up and get a lead on it where they're firing in front of it to arc the bullets. And then it like zooms even faster just to mess. If it could go that fast, it could have gone out. Could have been out of frame, gone, but it's sitting there just keep shooting at me. Can't hit me. And it's messing with them. So I don't know if that was like Russia flexing on us. I don't know if that could have been our guys testing our own guys.
Yeah.
Like these guys don't know. These are the higher up guys who are in the super secret stuff. And they're like, hey, let's go buzz like one of the bases and just freak the guys out. Or it could be the aliens, just saying like, see how primitive this stuff is.
Or the, Area 51 or S4 or whatever it is now, testing something that they tried to build.
Yeah.
I don't think, for sure they've been here.
Yeah.
For sure they're at S4 or whatever, for sure. No doubt about it. But that tic-tac-toe shit, I don't think it's a UFO. I just don't. I know it's fast as fuck, but I don't know. And we're already shooting at them. Yeah, they can zip out of the way, but there's already that threat there because they're getting, rocket launcher shot at them, but you can't hit them because they're so goddamn fast.
Yeah, to them it's like us being on like a motorcycle and they've got rocks and spears. Like we can get out of the way, no problem, and just toy with them and let them expend all their energy. Be like, okay, that was fun. Let's go grab lunch. But it's definitely an interesting thing to start seeing this official stuff coming out because they've been recording it. They've got something. There's something there that's not answered that they're paying attention to, and now it's starting to become unveiled. And I think more and more people are going to start coming out and saying maybe they had. I've seen stuff where they say that they've had their minds kind of erased and they're working on these special projects, and because they went to a hypnotherapist to cure their smoking sensation, now they're starting to get these other memories back. And the 21 and Back program, have you heard about that?
Yeah. Yeah,
that kind of stuff. It's weird that this stuff is coming out, and it's like, I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's like half and half. So this one is what? That's when the pilot was in there and he couldn't. I believe this is the object here, and they're trying to radar it, and they just can't keep track of it.
That was another thing I was going to bring up. I saw this chart that had basically it kind of mapped our ability to travel through air, and it kind of like shows that decades ago we kind of maxed out. We haven't been going much faster than what we could travel decades ago.
Yeah.
So it's weird that all of a sudden we stopped making these advancements in speed and aircraft, despite it being able to do all these things and be the stealth mode and all this other jazz. Like the speed kind of plateaued at some point decades ago, which is just kind of like, did it really plateau, or are they just hiding any advancements that have been done since then?
Yeah, see, I mean, they're saying like the evidence is poor. This witness testimony, the Navy videos using infrared heat cameras on Navy jets showed strange shapes that seemed to twist in the sky and quickly pass beneath the aircraft. The perplexing nature of these videos has become a favorite topic in UFO circles, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's kind of, I guess, up to your own conclusion, right? Yeah. But this one, I don't think. I think that was, there was a ton of them. Tic-tac-toes, all that shit. I mean, they're doing all kinds of shit, but I don't know. I just, I don't know.
It's interesting to see this stuff. Like I was saying before, it's just like conspiracy theories. Any of this stuff, I'm fascinated by. I'm not willing to make life decisions based on it. Like I'm not, building out a bunker and trying to.
Yeah, I know people that are doing that shit too.
I've seen. I
shouldn't say I know of or heard of, and they're actually doing it.
Yeah. I've seen like they build them in missile silos, and and supposedly Bill Gates built some kind of a.
Didn't he build like a bunker?
So yeah, and he like reportedly he told some of his employees to like get out of the country, but this was months ago. So whatever was supposed to be happening, like maybe it was hype. Maybe he didn't even say all that stuff. But yeah, he's got like HEPA filters and enough food to last a certain, like for years, and like 12 people could live down there, and it's got its own like redundancies and generators and all this other jazz. I guess if you're one of the richest guys in the world, what else are you going to spend your money on? It's like you're going to kind of cover the entire table with bets at that point. But it's, I don't know, I'm always alarmed when it seems like the really intelligent or guys who would be in the know start making moves like that. And it's like, what are you not allowed to tell me?
Yeah,
like,
because you know there's something there, you know?
Yeah.
I just wish they'd be, but you know, Casey, do you think society could handle it?
I don't. And I think look at what happened with last year, what happened. I don't even want to say the word because everything's being censored right now, but people buying toilet paper and stuff like that. And we're used to it, in Florida, every time we have a hurricane, there's some mad dash to buy every piece of lumber and every battery and every bottle of water. And it's the same thing. So you can only imagine those resources being depleted so quickly on a global scale, and how fast it would become a you versus me type situation if people were in fear of these, beings coming from outer space and all this other stuff. So have you heard of Project Bluebeam?
No.
It's this CIA thing.
You talked about it. I'll look it up.
So it's from what I know, it's kind of a plan and the premise, I guess, would be that we've already been working with aliens through our government for decades, and Project Bluebeam would kind of be this planned, orchestrated unveiling where they create this fake event where I've heard different versions. One would be kind of like a religious character, Jesus' second coming, or the Jews would believe it's the first coming would happen, and they're even talking about using what are they called? Holographic projecting satellites to make this thing appear in the sky and kind of unify everybody.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, this right here?
Yes.
Okay, I have no idea about this one, so you'll have to read this to me and school me on this.
Well, and this would be, from what I understand, this is kind of a way to say, like, hey, by the way, aliens are real.
Okay.
And I've heard different versions where, like, one would be it's a fake event, and it just does two things. It kind of unifies us, makes us dependent upon our government, and then also introduces the fact that aliens are here. And in some of them, they've said it's going to be a hologram. Some of them say it's going to be, alien ships, but it's going to be kind of the good guys playing like they're bad guy aliens. And then we have a savior race of aliens that comes in like, hey, we're going to work with humanity, and not all of us are bad, and don't worry, because even though there's this big threat, there's also an equal big brother who's going to take care of us and be friends with us and shaking hands with whoever the president is, kind of stuff. But
So what they're saying here is Blue Beam, which I've never heard of, is a conspiracy theory that develops the New World Order conspiracy. According to conspiracy theorists, the processes described in Blue Beam theory are the steps necessary to establish a New World Order. According to Blue Beam theorists, NASA and the UN have begun to produce highly advanced technology. Using this technology, the entire Earth will see a simulation in the sky that would be created using satellites located at different locations on Earth. As conspiracy goes, using this method and in cooperation with
the Antichrist.
Yeah, I'm fucking
So this
terrible.
one gets kind of dark, yeah.
Yeah, a simulation of the second coming will be created, and all the humans on Earth will be united under a single religion, under the framework of blue. So basically, it's just going to be a single religion type of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe years down the road, but I don't see that anytime soon. Do you?
No, I mean, it's one of those things where it seems so far off and whimsical, but then you start seeing these disclosures that they're coming out with, and it's like, where else? I kind of feel like we're watching one of the last seasons, or one of the last couple seasons of a show that was really good. It was a really successful show, but now some of the writers are getting tired, and they put their apps out to other shows, and they're leaving Lost to start working on some other J.J. Abrams thing, and now like the writing is starting to get sloppy, and they're like, all right, let's just wrap this up. It's like the last season of Game of Thrones where they're like, we got 3 episodes, let's wrap it all up really fast.
Yeah,
and it's just craziness coming out,
just
left
flying
and right.
like House of Cards when what's his name left?
Yeah,
shit, that was a great. I mean,
it was so good.
The guy's a dirtbag,
Yes.
but he played a great part. Frank, whatever. His name was.
Underwood.
Frank Underwood. I watched every one and then when they got rid of him, it went to shit.
It's like I said before, like we want a good guy or a bad guy. We don't want to hear there's redeeming qualities about a good guy or a bad guy, and we don't want to hear that good guy's done bad things. And it's like I'm split with some of these celebrities who come out where it's like I really like their work, but it seems like they're a bit of a scumbag. Like Cosby, who just got out of prison, like.
Well, that was I read that was Double Jeopardy. They actually fucked up.
Yeah, I heard they introduced evidence in a civil case, and then they used that in the criminal case or something like that. And I think Weinstein might be getting off under the same technicality.
Yeah,
he pled guilty.
It was either federal. I think the Fed. I could be wrong. It could have been civil. It's one or the other. It was either a civil case, but I think it was a Fed. I could be wrong, and I don't want to say something wrong. So it's one of the two. I'm pretty sure federal because it was different states that this happened in. So when you cross state lines with whatever crime you do, it's automatically a federal case.
Yeah.
Unless every state's going to charge you. But usually the feds pick up something like this. Yeah. The state ended up picking it up. So whatever. But he was initially, I believe, hit either on a civil case or a federal case. So now you're already hit.
Yeah.
The state then can't charge you again. That's why I'm pretty sure it was federal.
Okay.
Because, like, if it's a lawsuit, that's one thing, but that's not really a charge. That's just somebody getting money out of you or suing you.
Yeah.
So it was, I believe it was the feds that charged him, figured it out, whatever, and for whatever reason, A, B, C, or D, or E, they got what they wanted. They didn't want to deal with it. Whoever the organization was, I should know this. And then the state picked it up. Well, you can't get charged twice.
Yeah.
It's either Fed and you do your Fed time for that charge or the state. Now, if the state charged him with something different than what the Fed did, then they could do that on a detainer. Like, you do his Fed time and then state time.
Yeah.
But you can't get hit Fed and then the Fed says, okay, and then the state picks it up. That's double jeopardy. So whichever, and again, I don't want to screw it up. So somehow, some way, that's the gist of how he got out.
Yeah.
So they fucked up, really.
And and this kind of touches on conspiracy stuff. Going back to Kevin Spacey, I think 2 or 3 of the people who accused him ended up suiciding themselves.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And now do you think he's going to be coming back to acting?
I don't think they'll give him the shot.
I think he'll come back because it'll be some producer or production company willing to take the bet. It's going to be free press for them because it's going to be so controversial. Everyone's going to go see that movie. And then after that, it'll be normal because it'll be like, they took the first hit. They took all the arrows for putting him on screen again. Now we're not as bad as them.
What did they say he did exactly? There's been so many of these lately.
I think the biggest thing was on top of like the unwelcomed kind of advances or whatever. I think
like
there were
Bill O'Reilly thing,
like that. But I think there were underage. I remember one of them, I believe, had something to do with an underage boy at a party way back in the day. Like the guy was 13 at the time. He's an adult now, and he came forward among other people. And from what I've heard, like 2 or 3 out of them killed themselves. So now they can't really pursue. I think those were some pretty damning witnesses. So I don't know if I don't think he's going to see time. So it's weird. So much stuff is coming out. These people who didn't anticipate the internet, really. That's really what's
that's what's
made this happen.
But, why wait 20 years? Why wait all this time? I mean, I guess you could be afraid and, you don't want to be the first one to come out. But, like with Cosby, I mean, I'm sure he was the biggest dirtbag in the world. But it was like 20, 30 women?
I think there was 52 accusers. It was some number where it was like...
Look, I'm not sticking up for a sick fuck. Yeah. But I don't think that 52 girls at that point in time would not fuck Bill Cosby. I'm sorry. He was like the biggest guy on the planet at the time.
Yeah.
You think 52 girls turned him down?
I would say probably the majority of them would have some validity to what was going on. Because also it also comes down to like maybe that was what he was into.
Yeah.
Was the control aspect and everything. Because a lot of times it's not just about, like they say, like a lot of times it's not just about the sex. It's about some other psychological thing that you're getting from it. So I think his thing was like like putting roofies in drinks and stuff like that.
Yeah, that where there's proof there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but like, 1 comes out, 10 comes out, maybe but do you think all 52 are real, knowing that there might be a paycheck behind that? I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No, yeah.
He's a sick fuck. So whoever's watching this, don't think I think whatever he did was right. I'm just saying I'm not quite sure all 52 are.
That's what's hard is like you always have that, especially when it's a situation where, like I always think of when people come out, like Bob Lazar or whoever, whenever someone's saying something that is so controversial or against the grain or not welcomed, it's like what do they have to gain? And of course, like out of 52 or 62 or however many, there is probably a likelihood that some maybe exaggerated a circumstance or whatever else. But I think like your initial question, why would they wait? I think a lot of them probably thought it was only me. And then once they see someone else, it's like, okay, I wasn't alone. And when they see 3 other people, it's like, okay, I'm going to say something too. But then along with that, you see there's going to be some people who...
Money's behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever there's money involved, it's going to be more. And again, I'm not saying he didn't do it.
No.
I'm just giving a different angle.
And it's a shame because that erodes the validity that other like people who really were victimized have. Because now it injects that doubt. But I mean, I see it because at the end of the day, like I said before, I keep saying it's not as simple as black and white. There's nobody who's all good, who's never done anything bad. And then it's a slippery slope. And especially when you get in that environment where, like as men, we're kind of taught inadvertently that, look at rock stars and politicians and anybody who has power. It's like you get the power, you get the money, you're a king, you want a harem full of women. And that's just something that is like partially hardwired into our DNA. Like even lions, they want to mate with as many lionesses as possible. So when you're the strongest lion, are you going to be monogamous or are you going to do whatever you want? And you're then also as a human, when you get to that kind of level, you get out of so much stuff. You have that trip of like, I am better than everybody. Like I don't deserve to get a speeding ticket. I should be allowed to speed. I should be allowed, the rules shouldn't apply to me because I am this great person. And you have that mix of like ego and narcissism and all these people, all these sycophants around you. Yeah. And it's just like, I mean, you don't play the game at this level. Nobody like works to be a billionaire just to like go home and pay a mortgage and drive a Volvo. They get whatever they want. They see how far they can push the game. And some people, when they have a little thing broken in them or the wrong little thing is fed, and I don't know what his childhood was like. They talk about Michael Jackson and he had a weird childhood. That doesn't excuse it, but it explains that's what was broken. Yeah,
it explains why what happened. Again, doesn't mean it's right.
No.
It just explains why what happened. With Cosby, I'm sure he did a lot of it. I'm sure some of it's bullshit, but I think he did enough where the state, the Fed, the county, the civil, whoever it was, I mean, now these women that this did happen to, this guy does 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean.
And it reinforces kind of like what was already existing, and what everyone was afraid of is like, this guy's so powerful, it won't stick to him. And it's like, oh yeah, it stuck for 2 years when he should have had, I don't know how many life sentences or how many years he would have gotten.
And they should have, I mean, he had a Johnny Cochran.
Yeah.
Just like Casey Cochran.
Yeah.
He had a Johnny Cochran.
Yeah, man.
The guy's worth $1 gazillion. So he had the best of the best. And that whole 2 years he was in there, that he probably dropped over $1 million on lawyers. Easy.
Yeah.
So the state, the Fed, whoever, they should have fucking crossed their T's and dotted their I's, because now the fucking guy's out. And even if he only did half and they double fucked him, they should have found a way to keep his ass in there at least for 10 years, 15. Fuck him.
Yeah, it does show again. Maybe it's a bunch of honest mistakes, but it does kind of reinforce that apparent situation where we've got two different justice systems.
And money talks and bullshit walks, and who knows who they could have got to.
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing it now. You know, I've always known it, but now you're seeing it.
Yeah.
You know, in many different aspects. You know, let's look at the last president, whether you like him or not. Every one of them turned their back on him, except for Rudy. He's about the only one. Somebody goes up there with a bag of cash. You don't say anything. How's your dog, Phil? How's your wife, Brenda? Okay, just take this and, you know what to do.
Yeah.
So then it becomes that guy or your family.
Yeah.
You know, so same thing applying with this situation. You know what I mean? They could have went to a prosecutor, an attorney, whoever. Somebody to get to somebody, judge, whatever, where you never know. When it comes to money and celebrity shit, you never fucking know.
And at the end of the day, I mean, it's so hard to find that real tried and true Captain America guy who's going to do whatever's right, whether there's a million people against him and he knows he's facing, imminent death for doing it like that. Unfortunately, there's not as many of those people in existence, let alone throughout the government. And I mean, you probably saw the Miami Herald, I think, did a great expose on Epstein, and they had this web of all these connections and all these people who, this attorney who was a prosecutor ended up getting a job for the law firm that represented Epstein afterwards, and they went pretty easy on him. And it's like everyone has self-interest.
I forget who I went through that with, but I had somebody in, and he had the flight records, all the flight records of everybody. Yeah. When I saw Lady Gaga, I was like, holy shit. I didn't think her. I mean, she was a little off, but I liked her.
Yeah.
But I never. And why else would you go there?
Yeah.
Why else would you go to that island?
And especially like
some real people that you would never think would go there were on the flight.
Yeah.
And you have no other reason to go there. I don't care what you say.
And you lose, like when you see someone like Gates, who supposedly Gates became closer to Epstein after his convictions and stuff like that he got a slap on the wrist for. And someone like Gates, I mean, to get near that guy, you're vetted. You're Googled. And if you Google Epstein, you look a little bit, you're going to find all this stuff. So the fact that he could say, I had no idea that this guy was becoming friends with,
Didn't Gates do something else really dirty?
There's a bunch of stuff.
He's been doing a lot of dirty shit.
Yeah.
Or it's coming out.
And
one of the two.
And what's funny is if you look, I saw this thing that was talking about, and I vaguely remember this, but like in the 90s, Gates was painted as this money-hungry, bloodthirsty, corporate bully who was basically taking the tech from other companies who didn't have the legal purse to fight him. And Congress had to come in, and Gates was, testifying before Congress and being like a real jerk about it. And his whole rebranding was intentional. He was wearing a suit and everything back then. And they basically had these people come in and rebrand and be like, hey, man, your image isn't good publicly. You look like this antitrust, mean corporate bully guy who's like chewing up the smaller companies, copying their stuff and spitting them out and driving them broke to do it. We've got to rebrand you. So now that's why you'll never see him in a suit. He's wearing a sweater. He wants to look like Mr. Rogers, like your grandpa, this nice guy.
I haven't seen him in a suit in a minute.
Supposedly Rockefeller did the same thing where the country hated Rockefeller because he got exposed for all these child labor law violations. So these publicists came in, they're like, dude, you got to be rebranded. So let's start some philanthropic work and start publicizing that, make you look like this good guy. And after a few years, now, until recently, I always thought Rockefeller was this great guy, and he like had all these philanthropies and all this philanthropic work and all these charities and yada yada yada. It's part of the rebranding.
Yeah,
it's just to make you more marketable and to allow you to get away with stuff because now you're not this vilified person. So that's literally what they said Gates's thing was. It was mirrored after that, and that's why like you won't see him in a suit and a tie because that reminds you of when he was testifying before Congress. So now his whole image is everything's a sweater. And like I realized like I always see him like this relatable grandfather, nerdy kind of guy who wants to help the world and save everyone in Africa. And then they come out saying that there's like infertility with all these experimental things that he's doing. He was there was this facility that was completely set up and ready to make the I don't want to say the word, but the treatment for what we've got going on in India. And he was saying like, oh, well, there's no other facilities who are set up to do this. And they're like, yeah, this one's ready to go. It's vetted. It has all he just didn't want to share the recipe.
Right. He
wants to control it.
Mm-hmm. And he never, remember, he was at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then Apple came, and then Google came, and then, I think you use Windows, don't you?
No, now I'm a Mac guy now.
Holy fuck, you're a Mac guy, iPhone and Mac?
Yeah, well, I was on the Mac first. I had the MacBook first. I'm on my second one now, and I am a big fan of that. And then I finally got off the Android, which again, like I said, I'm still struggling with. But
in another month or 3 weeks when we come back, and because we have all kinds of cool, space things to go over.
Yeah, way more.
Yeah, way more. But you'll at that time. 3-4 weeks, you'll get accustomed to it. I had a problem with it too. I threw one out the window.
How long ago did you switch from Android? Or you went for BlackBerry?
BlackBerry.
Right?
I went back in BlackBerry, and I tried it. I tried Android. I was just I was a nutcase back then. This is like whenever that it was like kind of new. I think it was the iPhone 5 was the first one I got. But I had gotten an Android first because I had the BlackBerry. It was too complicated. It pissed me off. I threw it out the window. Instead of just taking it back, went back and got an iPhone like a moron, bought it, went back and got it, hated it. I tried it for 3 days. I kept that one. I didn't throw that out the window. I was just going to use it for whatever. And actually, the person I was with wouldn't let me throw it out the window because I just had thrown one out the window. So I hated it. I couldn't deal with it. I went back to the BlackBerry for another 2 months. And then finally I was like, everybody's using fucking iPhone now. Yeah. Let me just try this. And I fought through that bitch for a good month. But I'm on it all the time. And it took me about a month. And then, once you go Apple, you never go back.
Yeah.
And then I got into the Mac, and then that was game over.
Yeah,
because, there's
Mac,
no issues.
Mac I am a big fan of. There's just some stuff that little things like the back button for Android is located right by your thumb if you're holding it right-handed, so you don't have to stretch over. It's very easy to use one-handed. At least now you guys do have the swipe text on the keyboard.
But you also did get the biggest damn one you can get.
Yeah, and that was my fiance. She's like, no, you're going to get the best. I want you to have the best possible experience with it so you can really like acclimate to it and like it faster. And I just...
So here's like the 12, the next smallest one. So now see if you could do things with one hand with this one.
Well, it is definitely easier. I would definitely be able to.
Yeah, you can go through it and like try to just text. So like you're talking, if you would, this is the 12 Pro, you got the 12 Max. If you would have got this, look at my hands.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything about my dick. But, I can go all the way up here,
Yeah, it's acclimation. I just got to get used to it. So I don't have a choice. She won't let me go back, so I'm just like, all right.
No reason to...
Just got to keep her happy.
Happy wife, happy girl, happy life.
Exactly.
No reason to argue. So what? You got to stretch more if that keeps everything happy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's good is she used to always complain about me having the Android, and she's like, oh, well, I can't FaceTime you. I can't see your location. I can't AirDrop. So now I have it. So now she can't complain anymore. Now I'm the one who has the card where I'm just like, oh, got to stretch over here. Oh, my thumb hurts because I have to stretch for the back button. Oh, I'm so glad I can't do this. Facial recognition.
That's got the Pro.
Yeah.
But shout out to her for at least getting you on Apple. Ooh, that's the start.
She's relentless. Yeah.
So now when we talk about dimensions, when I think of dimensions, I think of, said it many times. I feel like I repeat myself, but you're the one to be talking about this like a Beto or somebody else. And I think of as like we're all living 7, 10, whatever they want to say, different lives at the same time, but we don't know it. One fact to me that kind of proves that theory is deja vu.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're walking down somewhere and you've never been there, but you're dead set that you've been there, or somebody says they've seen you and they're dead set that they've seen you. Multiple things of people that have been in here when this gets thrown around, there's no other explanation for it, in my opinion, because you were never there. How the fuck could you remember that? And in my opinion, there are other dimensions, and energy is energy, and everything makes mistakes. There's a glitch in everything. Mm-hmm. And I think when you or I or somebody else has deja vu, it's just like a glitch in that energy for that split moment or however long it may be that comes out, that it just crosses wrong and the dimensions just cross at the wrong time. You know what I mean? Like a glitch on a computer.
Yeah.
And then you think you were there, and you were there, but in a different dimension. So I think there's a good possibility or a possibility that when you die, your life here is over, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. You're done, finito. But what happens to the energy? It's got to go somewhere. And we might not be able to track it or see it or whatever it may be. I think it might go to another dimension. Now, you'll never have any recollection of being on this table right now with me in this studio, your current fiance, wife, I don't know which one it is. You know, my situation, you're in a different dimension. You could be on Wall Street right now. You could also be a plumber in another dimension. You could be, you know, deep shark diving in another dimension. So I think when you die, the energy crosses over to another dimension. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah,
I'm not dead set on anything. I have an open mind to anything. There could be fucking God up there. I just have a really, after talking to the heavy scientists and shit, I just personally, and I hope I'm wrong. I want to be fucking wrong. I hope when I croak, I fly up top and blah, 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 and happy time. And if I'm too bad, I go to hell. But that's just not, that just seems a little bit off the chain to me. But I respect it, and I don't know that that's not true. It could be true.
I think that I think a lot of religions are a way to explain a very complicated. It's both complicated. I think it's complicated because it is so unfamiliar to us, but it's really a very simple thing that I believe, and this is like backed up by, you know, even laws of you know, quantum physics and thermodynamics and things like that. Like I think the first law of thermodynamics is like the conservation of energy. So that means the amount of energy in a system cannot be changed. Energy can't be created or destroyed. And systems are like within systems. So like our universe is a system, I'm a system, this room's a system, but energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just moves into different forms and it's converted. So we don't create energy into a battery. We pull energy from something else and put it into a battery. And there's normally like a thermal, like either an exothermic or endothermic reaction to that, but you cannot create or destroy energy. So if we are energy, and if information and entropy and energy have like these different relationships, you know, the information is just kind of like a form or an expression rather of energy. So the memories that we have, and time also is something that I think is more of a constraint in the third dimension. And I think I'm very certain that the higher dimensions we go, there's less of a constraint and it's more of just a variable. Whereas we're limited by time, we can only travel forward in time. But once we get to higher dimensions, time just becomes like, it's as easy as like moving this around a table. It's
when you say higher dimensions, what do you mean?
So like there's the first dimension, which is like 0 dimensions. There's no length, width, height, or anything. Then the second dimension would be, so like the first dimension is like a point. Like a point doesn't have any dimensions. It's just a place. You zoom in on a point infinitely because there is no dimension to it. Then we have a line, which now we have length. And then we also have, with that also comes width. So that's when we can get to squares and circles and these two-dimensional objects. Then with the third dimension, we have length, width, and height. And we're able to now have cubes and spheres and things like that. Then I think the element or the, I don't want to say dimension, but yeah, I guess it's the time dimension would be the fourth dimension. And what I've also seen, like my interpretation of the different dimensions, like it goes up to, they say it goes up to like 10 or 11 dimensions depending on who you're talking about and then or talking to, and then it goes up into like the 20s. But the dimensions after the 11th dimension are unstable and they continuously collapse. And I can't speak too in depth about it because I don't understand it that much. But everything above the 11th dimension continuously collapses down to 11 dimensions. So it's like 10 or 11 depending on who you're talking to. And then everything from like the 8th dimension on is when you start, or the 9th dimension on, I think is when you get into string theory and stuff like that. So then even string theory, like everything is connected through different universes and different dimensions, all on these strings that they talk about.
Right. So we're kind of talking about two different types of dimensions. I'm more talking about the dimension with the string theory, which is where I'm reverting to, that we're living different lives at the same time, connected. Different ways, and everything's connected. And what Bado kept saying when he was in here, the universe or space never begins and never ends.
Yeah.
Never begins, never ends. And when you start thinking about that, that starts to fuck with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because it's so unfamiliar.
Yeah.
Everything we know of has a beginning and an end. And like you were saying, the Big Bang Theory. So this one thing that I was, what I've heard, and this would be like if the Big Bang existed or some beginning existed. Basically, as you travel up in dimensions, if you're a being in these higher dimensions, you, at some level, it's like you're a superhero in the dimension just below you. And then when you go up another dimension, or you go down 2 dimensions from where you are, it's like you're a god, where you become like, you could be omnipotent and omnipresent, know everything that's going on, be everywhere at once. So like a point, its relationship to a line is an infinite amount of points. You could continually dissect that line, and it's just an infinite amount of points. And you cut it in half, cut it in half, cut it in half. It's an infinite amount of points. And then you take a plane, or let's take let's say this was a sphere. We could keep chopping it. It's an infinite amount of circles. Then we go to the 4th dimension. If it's a 4th dimensional being, they can now move through time as they want. So like maybe your memories aren't memories from a past, it's from a parallel life, or maybe it's from the future that you just in this body haven't experienced yet, but there's that tie to the 4th dimension where you have this knowledge already. That's how we have like these savants who might have this information that is like stuff that they can't even experiment on because they're limited by what exists in their time, like Tesla and these guys who are just like so far ahead, and they're like, I have this theory that can't even be tested because we don't have the equipment yet, but when we do in decades, this guy's proven right. And it's just like this. But like I said, when you're this higher dimensional being, you seem like a god, or at least a superhero. Like if you're a 4th dimensional being in the 3rd dimension and you can control time, it's kind of like a superpower, but you don't know everything because that's a god level. A 5th dimensional being now is able to be everywhere at once. So they have that omnipresence, and with that comes like omnipotence, where you know everything that's happening is going to happen, already happened, and you can be everywhere at once. And then you get into the 6th dimension, the 7th dimension, everything beyond the 7th dimension. I think they say the 8th dimension on, you can't be a physical being at that point. So that's kind of like where you get into a god level where, and what else is funny, there's 7 chakras in the body. And it's funny that the 7 dimensions is all that we can be physical. Everything 8th dimension and on, we're no longer physical. We're just like this waveform or energy or consciousness. And like I said, like every dimension below, you're like a superhero, and you can be, like they say, so 4th dimensional being would be able to manipulate time. A 5th dimensional being would be able to be everywhere in that universe, on that timeline at once. A 6th dimensional being, I think, is then able to go to parallel timelines, go in and out, where they go to the universe where you're the one with the mustache and the hat on, or you're wearing a purple shirt. Right. Any combination is possible.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
And then the 7th would be omnipotent. So it could be at every single one of those parallel universes, the infinite amount of them, know everything that's going on, be everyone. And I think then we get past time, and then it makes sense where it's like there was no beginning or end, because that would imply time.
Correct.
So this is all happening within an explosion. Like it's a singularity.
Right.
And I would love to come back and just like ask Betos.
Yeah, Beto.
I'm just going to bother him with questions, like walking in and out.
I'm going to try to get him back. I mean, he's obviously busy as hell.
Busy dude, yeah.
But when I get him in, when I get him to come, well, if I can get him, if he has time, he'll come back in. He's a nice guy. But I mean, me and Rob are like just blown away.
Yeah, I've got so many questions that he probably would find like rudimentary and like, it's this.
Yeah. And he was pretty. I had to watch the. I did the fucking thing. I had to watch the thing more than once just to grasp even half of it.
Yeah.
And he was pretty sure on that dimension thing that I told you, and he told me, so I started really looking into it more. And I'm talking about like I understand what you're saying with your dimension, you know. I think like that's one way of speaking of dimensions, but then there's another way of speaking of dimensions too, and they're both probably right. I'm more talking like you said, I have the mustache and the hat right now. You have the slick back, wet back, fucking Dago bullshit going on. You know what I mean? In another dimension, but you don't know it.
Yeah.
And that's why I was saying, like, if I was to bet, again, I hope I'm wrong, I think the energy goes to another dimension, and the energy lives through that in whatever dimension that may be, but you'll never remember anything that happened in this.
Yeah.
Once this is done, it's done. But when you put that into perspective, and you have a guy like Elon who said it on Rogan, and you have a guy like Beto who said it on here, and they're both saying there's no beginning, there's no end. There's dimensions. The Big Bang never happened. Elon said the same thing. And when those two guys say it to you, and these fuckers are doing things that are just beyond our comprehension times a million, and I just read a couple articles that they gave me to read, I'm sold. I mean, if a guy can get to Mars in 7 days, he's just waiting for it to go through. A guy could put a spaceship up and reuse the rocket. A guy could shoot something in your brain and unparalyze you.
Yeah.
Take away your son's daughter's autism. You know, on and on and on. I mean, come on, what are you gonna do? Go against them?
Yeah, it's what I think is really interesting is how a lot of this stuff that is like cutting edge science is already kind of in older religions. It's just like I was saying before, they're dumbed down stories that we couldn't understand, but like at the very basic fabric level of what we know to be reality, it's like being reinforced by like Hinduism, where they kind of believe that there wasn't a beginning and an end, that this is all continuously created. And my interpretation of it now, and my fiance's Indian, so like we kind of argue where she sees some of it as more of a almost to be taken as a literal story, and I see it as like, no, it's this explanation of these multi-dimensions and like this consciousness that becomes aware, becomes lonely, dreams up all these things. It becomes more and more complex, and it's like divided into all these little fractals and comes up with all these identities, and it's consumed with this illusion that it's created until eventually it starts pulling away the veil, and then it comes back and it realizes, oh wait, I am God, I did create this, I am just this lonely consciousness. And then there's like this period that they theorize, the Indians theorize, that I think lasts like hundreds of billions of years, where then the consciousness or the God goes to sleep, and then it wakes back up, and then it creates all of this stuff from scratch again, and just continuously does that. And when you get to that level, yeah, there is no time. It's just this like reverberating echo where every pattern of everything, again, time, you get rid of time and it's endless. You have the time to do everything because there is no time.
Right.
So every coin flip, every decision, every topping on every taco, everything, every variable is played out. And it's overwhelming to think about that because it's so unfamiliar to us, but
very possible.
Yeah.
It's very possible. And it kind of goes back to it never ends and it never began.
Yeah.
You know, that all kind of falls into place. And some of the things that they found in the caves and then the writings and the drawings that they did, I mean, it kind of throws you off a little bit because but then again, they're hallucinating like motherfuckers back then too.
Yeah.
So you got to take that with a grain of salt. But, you know, I think it's tough because we're not meant to know.
Yeah.
And what's happening now is these guys that have, you know, maybe by a fluke or whatever, have this extreme IQ, probably just by a fluke, are able to grasp this kind of stuff and not just grasp it, but develop it into an acting piece of, you know, they won't even call it material. You know, a machine, us citizens will call it a machine, you know, that can do this. But to them, this is just like second nature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they don't take any, I mean, Beto was like, no, there's no end, there's no beginning.
Yeah, he's so definitive about it because he knows.
He's 100%. And then he pull it up and what are you going to do? I mean, it's right there.
Yeah.
And he brought in some papers that like I could understand, you could understand. Somebody that might not be that into space, simple enough where you can get a grasp that maybe this is a possibility. But, it's up to you to believe whatever you want. And I think whatever makes you happy in life, you believe.
Mm-hmm.
Me, you, and other people that think kind of like us, we want to know.
Yeah.
And we're interested in it. And what could it be? And then there's some people that just don't give a fuck, and they live their life, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever makes you happy, right? So I don't want somebody to think that you or me are like, against God or something. I don't fucking know. Again, I hope I float the fuck up, but I bet my balls I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, personally. But if that's your belief, good, stay that way. Because really, if there was no religion, whether you believe it or not, society would be real fucked up.
Yeah, that is the
and that's a problem with technology, because as time goes on, the facts are starting to get there that a lot of the things in that thing, what they're proving contradicts it.
Yeah. And
pretty like 100%.
And you don't want to, I mean,
and that starts wars.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot of foundational stuff that is probably not as solid as we think. Like Lex Friedman even was talking about, there's one podcast where he's kind of explaining how scientists, and you'd expect them to be very unbiased and just want to know the truth and be like, regardless of what theory or whatever I won a Nobel Prize for, like if it's wrong, I want to know. In reality, it's not like that. They want to give funding to the stuff that, like if you had a theory or something that contradicted the other theories that are already kind of established and there's textbooks and everything, they don't want to erode that. So it's going to be harder for you to get your funding and your support to get your word out, to challenge the status quo, to challenge the institution. So it takes a lot. Like even Einstein died thinking that quantum mechanics was inaccurate and wrong, and he's like, yeah, it's just something funky in the math. After he died, they did prove that they did more tests that proved it is right, but Einstein was like the god at that time. So if you were doing something in science that contradicted Einstein, like, you're the idiot. But then after, these idols kind of die and there's enough time and enough experiments, it takes, decades sometimes for this stuff to be proven. But and quantum mechanics is interesting because it basically says the fabric of everything that we know of to be created isn't what we think it is. It's not solid material. Everything's a waveform. Everything's energy. And quantum mechanics is all about potential or the possibility. And what's interesting is that kind of echoes through everything larger. And it talks about, and that kind of reinforces multiverse and you having a deja vu and everything, because that's the possibility. That's another alternative reality that was possible that you're seeing play out. You're just not able to experience it. And then you get that little tap where it's like, I've been here before. I know you. Where do I know you from? Like that kind of stuff.
And don't you think that's kind of like when the energy just crosses wrong?
And
you know what I mean?
It's like you're a temporary conduit into this other level where you're able to get the perspective of what's going. It's, again, to go back to the different dimensions. Sometimes it's easier to go to smaller dimensions. So we're 3-dimensional. If we were to go to a 2-dimensional world, we would seem like gods or at least superheroes. We're able to manipulate all this stuff, but more importantly, we can kind of see what's coming. So even though we can't tell the future, I can see that this dot, this dot and this dot can't see each other because we've got this in the way. But I can see that this dot is traveling this way. So I know that eventually this dot is going to be able to see this.
Right.
So I can predict the future kind of, but I'm not. I'm just looking from a different perspective. So a 4th-dimensional being who's able to observe everything from a different perspective, and they can see oh, this guy's going to trip, and then that's going to lead to 8 hours later, a series of events happens, and he's going to miss the bus or something, all from him stubbing his toe when he's getting out of bed. He's going to yell at this, and he's going to yell at his wife. It's going to make him 5 seconds too late for this, and the toast doesn't come out right, and then all these things, and then I can see this happening, and it's only because they're looking at from a different perspective. Mm-hmm. So what's funny is I just had this conversation with one of the guys that's in my class, and he has this reoccurring dream. He says it's very detailed and very real, where he's a French merchant who's secretly a pirate. And I thought that was really interesting. I don't have any reoccurring dreams like that, but that's like, he's like, I really hope that there are different dimensions or there is reincarnation, because I think this is true and I really want it to be true. And it's really interesting, but it's like very specific. Like he's reoccurring dreams of him being a French merchant who's like low key a pirate and nobody knows about it. I'm just like, man, that's such an interesting. And they have this little kid that I remember, little kid has really vivid memories about being in World War II. And he even knew the nickname. And I think they were able to do some research. And they're like, yeah, there was this guy who had this job in the Air Force during World War II. That was his nickname. This is how he died. And this 5-year-old, like, who is he making it up? How does he know all this stuff? Was he Googling this backstory and corroborating all this stuff? And then what's he got to gain? He's a 5-year-old, you know? And it's just, I think that's what we're tapping into.
Yeah, I think more things happen. More and more things are happening if you have an open mind, that are just starting to change things. And then you have people coming out. And I remember Beto. I remember, again, seeing Elon on Rogan, and Peterson, who just died. He had said a couple of the same things. And they were 100% on the dimensions, 100%. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts, you know, with proof. And, you know, when guys like that say that, you know that they're not going to say that unless they've really looked into it. You know what I mean? And, you know, it's just a lot of things are going to change in the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's a control of government, these guys like Elon and Beto and Bezos, they're not going to quit.
No.
You know, I mean, you're not stopping them.
No.
You know, but, you know, who the fuck knows? But time machines. We'll do one more thing on this one, and then we'll promote your stuff, and then we'll have you back to finish up the other really cool.
All the different rabbit holes.
We have 6 more to get to, but you know, we'll break it up into 2. So on the time machine thing, I do have an article. So while I pull it up, you give me your thought process on the time machine.
I think that I think it's definitely inevitable that we either destroy ourselves or we create a way to manipulate time. And I think that with all the iterations that we're probably going through, you know, why not in this one be able to figure out how to manipulate time?
Now, this is from NASA.gov. So, you know, .gov, who knows? But it says, is time travel possible? Although humans can't hop into a time machine and go back in time, we do know that clocks on airplanes and satellites travel at a different speed than those on Earth. We all travel in time. We travel 1 year in between birthdays, for example, and we are all traveling in a time at approximately the same speed, 1 second per second. NASA's space telescopes also give us a way to look back in time. Telescopes help us see stars and galaxies that are very far away. It takes a long time for light from far away galaxies to reach us. So when we look into the sky with a telescope, we are seeing what those stars and galaxies looked like a very long time ago. However, when we think of the phrase time travel, we are usually thinking of traveling faster than 1 second per second, which Beto has defeated. That kind of time travel sounds like something you'd only see in the movies, science fiction books. Could it be real? Science says yes. Now, before we go into this with me and you, how do we know that time travel is possible? More than 100 years ago, as Casey just said, a famous scientist named Albert Einstein came up with an idea about how time works. He called it relativity. This theory says that time and space are linked together. Einstein also said our universe has a speed limit. Nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, 186,000 miles per hour. What does this mean for time travel? Well, according to this theory, the faster you travel, the slower you experience time. Scientists have done some experiments to show that this is true. For example, there are experiments that use 2 clocks set to the same exact time. One clock stayed on Earth while the other flew in an airplane, going the same direction as Earth rotates. After the airplane flew around the world, scientists compared the 2 clocks. The clock on the fast-moving airplane was slightly behind the clock on the ground. So the clock on the airplane was traveling slightly slower in time than 1 second per second. Can we use time travel every day in life? We can't use time travel to travel hundreds of years into the past or future. That kind of time travel only happens in books and movies. But the math of time travel does affect things we use every day. For example, we use GPS satellites to help us figure out how to get to new places. Not blah, 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 blah. So what they're telling me is it is possible.
Yeah. And it's something that we do. We just do it in such a small and imperceptible way that we don't consider it. But, if Einstein's wrong about quantum mechanics, he might be wrong about the limitations of, being able to travel. And like I mentioned before, you might be able to circumvent the whole, because we're very used to the thought of like A to B. I have to travel this distance. But I'm sure everyone's seen the example of, where they fold a piece of paper in half to explain wormholes. And then it's like, now if I made a hole between this end of the paper and that end of the paper, you're instantaneously at another place.
That's what Beto said. I said, well, how do you think you'll be able to get through the particles? And he said, we have to figure out when I guess the wormhole is only there at a certain time. And I mean, you got to hit right.
Yeah.
And that was how he believes other life or other objects or whatever got here is through that wormhole. He feels that the only way to get through those particles is either have the technology, which we don't even have anything close to be able to get hit at 186,000 miles per second and it not blow the fucking thing up, or find how to get through that wormhole and then boom, you're good to go. If you can find that, you win. So in my opinion of it, when you say time machine, I don't think you can go back in time. When I think time machine, I don't think like that. I think more so of a machine that can defy time.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they kind of proved it that it's possible in that 1 second's a lot.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and we're just talking a shit airplane.
Yeah. What we're able to do with like mechanical, like combustion engines, and
right?
stuff like
and
that.
When you're talking a machine that can defy gravity, go almost the speed of light. 1 second's a big fucking difference on a clock.
Yes.
So
I think that like I was saying before, like as far as getting through the matter and everything, it might be like supercavitation in the space-time plane that we're in, or I guess it wouldn't be a plane dimension that we're in, where you kind of split the space and you're traveling in between it, like you're going through two different curtains of space, so you're not hitting anything because there's nothing in there. You have like this bubble around your ship, and I'm assuming it would have something to do with Lazar talks about the engines, the propulsion systems had something to do with manipulating gravity. And if you're able to manipulate gravity to the extent where you're creating like, I don't know, a small black hole in front of you, or I don't exactly understand where those things kind of are defined and blurred, but if you're able to manipulate these massive, super strong forces of energy, for lack of a better term, if you're able to create one, like I said, either a gravitational field in front of you that pulls instead of pushing backwards, you're pulling your ship in a way forward through a gravitational field that you're able to control. So you're just upping the gravity and going right through. Like they've shown that gravity can bend time and speed, and they all have this relationship. So maybe it's more of a manipulation of the field around you that allows you to slip through things. And I mean, once you're detached from time and space in that relative relationship, who says you can't go backwards? Like, I don't know where it becomes, I don't know if it's necessarily any harder to go backwards, because like if we're looking at it as a timeline, if we're a dot that's used to just going from one end of the line to the other, we're just like, well, it can only go this way. But if we're looking at it from this dimension, it's just like, well, no, you could easily go this way. You just don't know it. You're just not, used to that happening.
Yeah.
There was one thing that I was, they were saying that like entropy is kind of it's theoretically like it might have a relationship with time. Like entropy is For those who don't know, entropy is basically the measure of disorder. So an example, one of the common examples is like an ice cube would be something that's very ordered. It's very organized. Like all those molecules are, all confined in that ice cube. And entropy increasing would be it melting into a puddle of water. And this gets into, that's the second law of thermodynamics, where everything constantly goes to increase entropy, so to increase disorder. So everything goes from an ordered state. Like if you leave this room alone long enough, it won't become any cleaner. Like this won't stack itself. Like there's what's interesting is, again, we get to probability, like quantum mechanics, where they don't say it's impossible, but the probability of you throwing a bunch of tiles down and them ending up like a bunch of like Scrabble tiles and them ending up in like a famous quote from Abraham Lincoln, it's like, it's possible, but it's highly unlikely. But if we leave this room alone, inevitably this stuff over hundreds of years is going to start to erode and decay and break down, and the ceiling tiles are going to fall, and everything's going to become less organized than what it is right now. And everything in the universe is also going to continually follow that. So they're saying that's kind of, there might be a relationship with time and entropy in the third dimension, where that's evidence that it can't go backwards, like we can't go back in time. But then it's also, again, that perception of what if I'm at the fifth dimension? We're like, oh, of course I can make, a pyramid from a bunch of dust. I just will it that way. So it's weird because we have all these rules that are like laws of physics that then again, they only exist in the third dimension. As soon as we get to the fourth dimension, it's like, okay, well, actually that doesn't apply anymore.
Me and you got to get Beto back in here, and we got to ask him back, because I didn't ask him about the time. I don't think I asked him about the time travel. I was too fucked up on the other stuff. I was just trying to grasp with you. I was blown away.
Yeah,
and he was a guy that's
just listening to him talk about his projects that he's on. You're just like, how that's so ingenious and kind of simple but complex. And you're just
he's like dealing with like that atom shit. I mean, really, like way beyond our comprehension type shit. And I at one point I was kind of like, if I'm a moron, which I am right now, how would you explain it to a moron?
Yeah,
and he did it. As the level he's at, he did a pretty fucking good job.
That shows mastery when you're able to take complex thought and simplify it like that. I mean, a lot of his stuff was way above. I would love to have, he would hate me having his cell phone number, because I would text him random stuff at like midnight and be like, hey, are black holes really just, the touching of bubbles of two different universes, and we just can't perceive it as anything else and other than like this black sphere?
He would love it. I mean, I think it was over 3 hours, and he would have went longer, but he had to go to, I don't know. I'm sure it wasn't Elon himself, but he was taking a flight to Texas to meet the team.
Some brains.
He had to, remember at the end of it, he had to leave to go do the last testing, and then he had to catch a flight to show what came in. At the time, it was ready, meaning the defying gravity thing to get it to Mars. And one thing that stuck with me that he had said was that anything is possible.
Yeah.
Anything. And I mean, when you think about that, and that it never began and never ended. I mean, that really throws you for a loop.
Yeah.
And I got as much out of him as I can while my brain was still able to fire.
Yeah.
I mean, me and Robert are like, what the? I mean, unbelievable guy. I'm going to try to get that. So because there was some things that I didn't get to. One, because he had to go, and two, because I was just too fucked up on the other stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was so much. That was dense with information and so much new stuff that it's just like, I didn't even know that existed.
And then he proved it all, you know? And I don't mean to keep bringing him up. It's just it relates to what we're talking
exactly,
to.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this and you're like, Casey and Tommy, who the fuck are they? Go watch Beta. What we're saying is right in line with him. He just is doing it.
Yeah.
you know?
He knows it, and we're just fascinated by it. It's like he's the magician, and we're just like, he pulled a rabbit out of his hat. We can't explain it, but we saw it happen. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's a trapdoor over here, and that's kids' play.
Yeah. You know? So now next time when you come in, I want to go to this warp drink. Don't tell me what it is, because I don't know what it is, and I want to be surprised. I want to go back to super captivation, because I still
super
don't quite.
cavitation, yeah.
And then
interesting stuff.
And we had 4 other ones to get to that we didn't get to. Remember, we cut them in half.
Yeah.
So we'll schedule before you leave.
Yes, sir.
Come back. I will try to get Beto in. And if it's not the day that you come back in to finish ours, when he does,
just let me know, and I'll just harass him to and from the parking lot and wait out there.
Yeah, I don't care what you got going on. You come, bring your girlfriend, whatever you want.
Yeah, stake him out.
So now let's promote your stuff here, because you got a great thing going on here with your meal prep biz 101. I messed that up last time.
Yeah, meal prep biz 101. I've got, if you were to hit me up on YouTube, that's where a lot of my videos are. Then I also have a bunch of other stuff on mealprepbiz101.com.
What show is this here?
That is a promo that we did with Suzanne Boyd.
Okay.
She's a local news celebrity. Now she's got her own show that she does. I think she was doing it every Friday. Well, I think she does it daily. And then she will have, we were
like when you
joining her on Fridays.
Prepackaged food, it can be
and you do that through a third party.
No, we have a location in Boca, and we make everything there ourselves from scratch, and then we deliver Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. So that's Fit Food Fresh. That's the meal prep company. And then the experience from Fit Food Fresh is what I've based all my consulting, and I just pull together resources. My whole thing is, I know the problems and the struggles that people in the meal prep business are going to face. So I'm constantly aggregating more resources and information to teach them how to do it, give them the resources to do it. Everything from, I've got free software that I partner with a company, really advanced software that is free for the business and just automates a million things. So it basically puts the power of like a $10 million company into the hands of like a guy who started last week.
Yeah.
Marketing, consulting, all sorts of anything you could think of. And I'm constantly looking for more stuff that I can kind of give them, like a business in a box, turnkey kind of thing. So you just customize it to the way you want, whether you want to do a vegan one or a keto one, or I've got one guy who's heavy on like home cooked kind of Italian meals and stuff like that. And I really focused on health. Like it's healthier. He uses like organic pasta or whatever, but he's not trying to make it like rabbit food.
Yeah.
And it catches, because there's someone out there, like everyone eats. So whatever concept you have for meal prep, what you're really selling is time and convenience. It looks like food, but you're selling time and convenience, because I could get food anywhere. The reason I'm buying it from a meal prep is because they do the work for me. They bring it to me. If it's a diet-based one, they're even doing the thinking and the macros and all the nutritional stuff for me, so I don't have to think about it. And we got into it because we were busy. As you know, as an entrepreneur, there's never enough time in the day. There's always something else you got to do. So why do these things? You spend 8 hours a week on food, buying, cooking, preparing, waiting in line, going to pick it up, waiting for the waitress to drop off the check. Like 8 hours a week is the average person just put into getting food. That's the most time consumptive, necessary, essential thing that you have to do. You have to eat and you have to sleep. Traveling, maybe depending on where you work, but like there's only so many things you can outsource. You still got to drive to work. You still got to sleep. And if I could figure out a product or a service that would let you outsource sleep, I would love that.
Me too.
But the next thing is food.
Yeah. And here's Casey's website, Meal Prep Biz 101. Start growing amazing business. You can sign up. You can watch some videos on YouTube. We can't do it here because then they'll strike it. But, you can watch the videos, and if you like it, sign up, try it.
I've got everything. I've got private group, software, one-on-one consulting. Yeah. I've got hundreds of videos that are out for free.
Here's just some of his videos here to show. You got a lot there.
Yeah.
So you got, so he's got plenty of videos on YouTube, and your YouTube is Meal Prep Biz?
Yeah, Meal Prep Biz 101. You'll find it. So YouTube, Instagram, not much on TikTok. Really, YouTube and my website are where you want to go. Everything else is kind of a spliced down or autonomized version of that content.
Yeah, and this will all be in the description. And if you're in business, it's just, you're a moron not to. I'm going to do it because I don't have any fucking time. I don't have time.
Makes it easy. You don't have to think.
And you got all these things. You got from setting up the meal business to mentoring with the meal business to teaching you the lessons. And it's not like you're charging a gazillion dollars. It's very reasonable. So make sure you check that out. mealprepbiz101.com. It will be in the description along with his YouTube, Instagram, everything else. And Casey will be back very shortly.
Yes.
And we will finish our more
rabbit holes and wormholes.
Because we got plenty left. And maybe it would be just me and you next time, but eventually we'll get Beto in here together.
Yeah.
Because you'll think of things that I won't think of because I'll be too stuck on something he blows my mind with that's new, I'm sure. And you'll be able to throw it at him. And some things I don't know, and I can learn from both of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you have a guy here proving it. Then what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would definitely be interesting to have us just double team him with questions back and forth, and he'd probably debunk a lot of the stuff that we believe in, but as long as we're getting closer to the truth, that's all I care about.
And that's all it's about.
Being wrong.
That's all it's about. And in closing, the one thing he did say, I said to him, well, if all this, I was hitting him back a little bit, with all due respect, of course, just questioning him, and I said, well, if all this is true, what you're saying, and I believe you, look, my man, I believe you, but why isn't this out more? And he said, here's the problem. And here's what really bothers me, is that a lot of extremely smart scientists, whatever you call it, he has astrophysics, whatever it may be, they are stuck on what they believe. Mm-hmm. And they will not go against what they believe for the last 100 years. They won't go against it, even if it's in black and white. They won't change their mind. But what he did tell me is that on YouTube and the events that they do where they speak, they say one thing, but behind closed doors, hey, Beto, I know you're right, but I don't want to be the one going against the scientific community. And he said, if we had everybody in the scientific community, like, the heavy hitters, all work together with open minds and not be so closed-minded that they're right and this is how it is, period, or afraid of what somebody's going to say, he'd say we would already have found other life by now.
Yeah.
But these other scientists and, astrophysics and so on and so forth, they are stuck on what they believe, and they either don't want to say it because the rest of the scientific community might not mess with them,
mm-hmm.
or they just have like a grudge, where this is how it is, this is how it's been, and this is how it's going to be the way it is. And he said, unfortunately, that's what's delaying what's happened. But now as Elon comes, Bezos comes, Beto comes, who the fuck else knows who's coming? I'm sure Tim Cook's got something up the line. All these heavy hitters now are starting to open up. So I think a lot of them are going to stay with, their own beliefs. They're not going to change. A lot aren't going to go against their fellow, scientists and everything else. But if you get enough, like Beto and Elon and those guys, you get a good 20, 30 of them, Lazar, you can really make some shit happen.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time. I want everybody to check out Meal Prep Biz 101. Sean is one smart dude, and we're going to get him in with Beto, and we got to get to the rest of this. Is fun shit. So we're going to get him back in 3-4 weeks for sure. He's going to be a fireman. We'll hope that gets done quick.
Yeah.
And wish the best of you everything. And thank your girlfriend, fiance.
Fiance.
Sorry, I don't want to get killed. For your time later at night. I appreciate your time, Casey.
Yeah, I'll pass that along, dude.
All right, man. I'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.
All right.